Hello, and welcome to your Pointers for Parents podcast. As you all already know, I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Lloyd with Lloyd Learning Labs here in Sugar Land, Texas. And you all already know what we do is we support parents with anxiety as it relates to teens transitioning out of the home after high school, whether they're heading off to the college campus, the military base, or simply residential interdependent. And listen, we have with us, I am so excited she's here. She's going to be spending some time with us and talking about different topics, and I'm super, super excited she's here. She's Dr. Meg, and she has done graduate work, of course, at the University of Minneapolis, and she has
Indianapolis.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there is a difference. And there is a difference in location, in the name and the location. You're absolutely right. And she did her undergrad and her grad work there. And you all know, yep, she has completed a dissertation and has her doctorate degree as well. And we're super duper excited about that. And listen, it's in like this parent-child interaction. And I know that that's something that's really interesting to you all, especially since your teens are transitioning out of the home. She has a specialty in this play therapy. She was trained by the Athena Drews, which you all know. She's an author and has just published tons of books. And so I am excited about us tapping into the trainee of Athena Drews. And so also, as you all may know, that there are not many who focus on play therapy. And so I'm excited about her talking about this. And she speaks to community leaders too, Dr. Meg does, and about the risk of suicide and helps to just connect systems just so that there's this idea of discontinuing this or helping so that we can prevent this suicide. And also, guess what? Just for fun, and it may be even a serious a hobby as well. She plays the piano. So I'm super excited about this side hobby. So Dr. Meg, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We had to have you on. And so I just want to start off with a fun question before we dive into just the specifics. Of course, how you work, what you do. I mentioned a little bit about that, but then also some questions I'd like to ask that are a little bit more focused. So tell me, what is your favorite quote? Do you have a favorite quote that exists as we speak?
I do. It is by Maya Angelou.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, people will forget the things that you say. They will forget the things you did. They will never forget how they made you feel.
Mm-hmm.
The way they make you feel. I think that's important. And throughout my career, I've really seen that.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
It is true. And, despite whatever field we're in, and we may even forget a person's name, but when we see that person, we will certainly know about that last interaction we had with them. So you're so right about that. You're so right. So now in the introduction, I mentioned a little bit about, suicide, and I know that the listeners of this program whose teens are transitioning out of the home, and for many of them, this is the first time their teens have left and are going off to live. And as parents, we know what happens not only in this world, but specifically on the college campus. And so if you can start off just telling us just a little bit about suicidal statistics and possibly even trends that you've seen that have caused like this ideation of suicide amongst teens. Can you help us with that starting off?
Yeah, it's a really big deal for this age group. A very big deal. Statistically, suicide is the second leading cause of death for individuals between the ages of 15 and 25. And that's more deaths than all of the other illnesses combined. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, making sure people are aware of this and that there's a lot of things that we can do to prevent it. Mm-hmm. And parents especially, there's a lot of things that they can do. And we don't know. I'm a parent myself. It's hard to know unless someone tells you. So I'm here to help you figure out what you can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so very much. And when we talk about like even those warning signs, because if we're honest, there are some things that may have happened on the college campus, even prior to our teens transitioning onto the campus. Like my daughter, she leaves in 2 years. And so I do have two older ones who've already transitioned out of the home onto the college campus. And so, but I did some research and I really dove into understanding specifics regarding, what has happened previously. I even, to be quite honest, I've talked with the police department there and the campus security, just so that I was in the loop and could receive text messages when something went on the campus or in the college town, so that I was aware, since they went off like they were hours away. And so what are some of the warning signs that parents should notice, and what actions should they take to prevent their teens from being harmed while they're away?
Well, I can start out with the warning signs. Those, of course, are your symptoms of depression, which you may or may not be familiar with. You see them acting sad or hopeless, not wanting to live, lethargic, or suddenly gaining weight or losing weight. Those are all signs of depression. Additional risk factors include drug use. And one I want to really point out is any sudden change of behavior. So if they have been depressed and they're suddenly happy, this is one that nobody really expects. That sometimes that means that they have made a plan and they are no longer worried about it because they're ready to go. You want to be aware of any significant changes in their behavior. Try to stay in touch with them and create a relationship with them where you can check in with that. And there's a couple questions that you can ask. This is a research assessment that you can go online, and they train parents even on how to screen for suicide risk assessment. That's the Columbia Suicide Severity Risk Scale.
Okay.
CSSRS. And the first two questions are the ones that are the most important. You want to know if your child has ever wished they were dead or wished they would maybe go to bed and never wake up. That's the first question. And then the second question is, have they had actual thoughts of suicide? And those things will help you figure out whether or not there's any ideation present.
Okay.
And the first two questions of the CSSRS, and you can go online and there are YouTube videos and such that will teach parents and anybody in the community how to use, there's 6 questions total, how to ask the questions and what to do based on the outcome.
Okay.
If there's a yes to either of those 2 questions, you want to get them to see a therapist and get some help. But there's some more things that you can ask as well. But is that something you want to hear about those too?
Yes, please.
All right. Beyond the ideation, I get to figure out, that's called ideation if you're thinking of suicide. You want to check and see if they have any sort of plan. Have they taken any measures to start doing it? What would they do? Have they started enacting the plan? That's a big warning sign. If that's happened, you need to put them into care immediately. Maybe call 911, emergency room, immediate psychiatric help. Then do you intend to carry it out? That is important as well. So those are the questions that this Columbia will ask, and they can give you. I think parents, when I've worked with them, they're like having the paper, the questions there to ask, because it is so anxiety provoking to even that your kid might be feeling this way. That's hard. I've really liked using that instrument because it is so well developed for community use. Anybody can use it, and you're going to get that information for everyone, right?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that'll be dropped right in the caption. So you're absolutely right. I will make sure that they have that information. So that was so impactful what you just mentioned. So now what tips and tools, when we talk about tips and tools that students can learn, because they're going to be away from their parents. And so there's this whole new environment. And so, being able to reach out to parents and have access to them, that's going to lessen. And so, but while they're on the college campus, what tips and tools can they utilize just to embrace positivity? Because I know it's a lot about how you think too,
Yes, very much about, you have to, if you're worried about your kid that's being depressed, a depressed person tends to think things like, I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthwhile. And it's really hard to change those thoughts without having something to replace them with. And so that's where I think identifying who you are as a person, helping your kid figure out what their strengths are, can become very impactful. Because we want to build self-love in our kids, and that is a very hard thing to achieve. I didn't get there until I was 36. So it's a hard thing to do. I personally talk about my own struggles with depression as well. with my work as with patients and then also through my own experiences, I have found you really need to kind of foster that self-love because you don't kill people you love. You don't die. So if you can foster the self-love in a kid or young adult, that's going to go so far towards building resiliency and the strength that they need to handle whatever stressful events might happen. And I have different ways that you can help do that.
Please share.
We covered everything pretty quickly.
Okay. Awesome.
Nope, I still have a whole page though.
Okay.
So we're on to, we want to help them figure out what their positive traits are because you want to love yourself, but you can't love someone. How do you love someone? You need to know who they are.
You're listening to Your Pointers for Parents podcast, where we support parents with anxiety as it relates to teens transitioning out of the home after high school. To get additional tips tossed and or gems dropped, subscribe to our weekly emails by clicking on the link below. Now back to Your Pointers for Parents podcast.
Yes.
Right? Who are you? A lot of people in this age, in this time frame of human development, brain development, that's what you're doing. You're figuring out who you are. And so that's why positive identity development is so important. It really protects against depression and things like suicide risk. You want your kids to be strong, know their strengths, and love themselves. There are a lot of free assessments out there. They're not like clinical assessments that I would use as a psychologist, but they're fun and they can give a starting place. One of the ones I really like is out of the University of Pennsylvania. It's the Values in Action VIA Survey of Character Strengths. And you can go to UPenn's website, and that's free. You do have to sign up. And they have a version to give your kids as well. Take it yourself. That's a good idea. Always role modeling is a good parenting rule when you're parenting older kids and young adults. Your main job is to be a role model. So take it yourself, find out your own strengths. They'll give you, the test itself is, as a psychologist, we get excited about tests. It's one of our things. So what they did is, Seligman and the Positive Psychology Center at UPenn did a bunch of research across all the cultures and did some fancy statistics and found out, I think there's 24 strengths that people can have. The test will give you the top 5. And then we have research saying that if you are using these strengths in your daily life, that is going to help you be more happy.
Oh.
So it's a really great intervention to both build happiness for anybody, especially people who are at risk for depression or suicide, because they have a hard time seeing their strengths at all. And then once you hear that as a parent, tell them that you are seeing it. When you notice those strengths, call it out. We like to assume that they know I love them. They know I think great, best things about them. But it's really important, especially when you're depressed because you're not thinking as well. It's important to hear the very straightforward words. I love you. You are important to me. I need you to be around. You are going to make a difference in this world. You are worth something. Here are the strengths you have. Mine are capacity to love others, creativity, love of learning. And how can you really incorporate those strengths into your daily life?
Dr. Meg, that is phenomenal because you're absolutely right. As parents, like, I think that us saying that enough, there's no way we can say that enough to our team, genuinely, because us voicing that, like putting that out into the atmosphere, like that can get down into their subconscious. I mean,
it really does.
And when we talk about that subconscious, then like the subconscious does not make decisions, but it follows what it hears. And then the teen, like, they have no other choice but to begin believing those type of things that us, using our powerful voice, can tell them. So, and even as you're saying that, like, I'm thinking about my own teen who will be going off. And so just how that can be, and I already tell her here and there, but as I increase that, how that can build her up even more and more and more. So that is so good. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's so good.
And as an adult, I still need my parents to tell me sometimes, Megan, you can do this. You can. You've got it. Look how strong you are. You just need to hear it sometimes. And the science imaging shows us that our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that does like our personality and our good decision making, is shut down mostly when we're really depressed. And that's why we can't really think of any option other than suicide.
Right.
You just have to escape. Brings me to the desire to escape and to control. I want to make sure I bring up trauma and how important that is in basically understanding a person, how much it impacts a person. Like, it is also a risk factor for suicide as well. I mentioned those earlier, but trauma, like suicide can almost be a trauma response of like the fight response, or you need to have some kind of control over your situation. If you don't see an escape, that's the only way they see out. And your brain's not working that great. Your animal brain's kind of in control when you're in fight or flight response. And that's where those bad people end up, we say dying by suicide. Your brain isn't working right. You aren't really you. And even just the words commit suicide puts a lot of shame on the person. Because what do we commit? Crimes? Right?
Right.
And suicide is really something that's going on in your brain and then it's not functioning properly. Luckily, the people around you can say things to help it function correctly. You don't even necessarily need medications to make it work. But different triggers, the things that might have happened to us if you have a trauma in college, that can be very hard to cope with. Just to always stay trauma informed as well. It's very important. And be aware of what things you may not have think they're traumatic to you, like as a parent, maybe that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But if your kid's saying this is a big deal to me, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. I get it. And you know that whole, Dr. Meg, when we think about, how some teens, they go through this on an undeveloped brain. They're having thoughts on top of an undeveloped brain. And so if we're on the outside looking in, like saying those words that gives more credence to saying those words of enforcement and saying those words of power, and you can do it. Because on the outside, we really have less than a clue of what's going on in the inside. And I'm glad you brought that up about, even as adults, like having those words of encouragement is still important because, let's be honest, like we're kids in adult bodies. Okay. So there's still a kid in us.
There definitely is.
That's so true. Oh my goodness. Is there any other words of wisdom? You've shared so much this morning. My goodness. Any additional wise advice you would give a parent whose teen is leaving this month? Some may have already left, but anything else that you think of?
There's a few more tests I'll maybe link to you guys.
Okay.
We don't have to go into them. They're just fun things that can help figure a person out. But just what you caught on to about how important it is to really say those things, even if it sounds kind of weird, like it's not really your family culture. Say, I love how smart you are. I'm so proud of what you are doing. I hope you keep doing it. Those things are so powerful for kids to hear.
I agree.
Say it directly and for them to hear it. Like, if you can look them in the eyes and say it, it's even more powerful. It's amazing, just that kind of connection. And if you don't have that connection yet, you can work something to build towards. And that's all right. Because you know what the best kind of parent is, science says? A good enough parent. We don't have to be perfect. That's my favorite fact.
The good enough parent. I love it. I love it. That is so good. That is so good. So yeah, we don't have to be perfect, huh? We don't have to get it all right. We don't have to, cross all T's and dot all I's. And so that's so good. Oh, Dr. Meg, thank you so much for being here today. This was such powerful information. And if anyone has any questions, how can they reach back out to you? Tell me that.
Yeah. I'm pretty active on Twitter. You can find me. I go by Badass Shrink or Dr. Meg. My handle's the shrink with the number 1 for the I. And making you think about it extra. So that'll be on your screen, right? So give them that information. And then on Facebook, if you are interested in the kind of music that I play on Facebook Live. And write my own songs piano-wise. And you can email me as well at drmegtheshrink@gmail.com, and my website is drmegtheshrink.com. Please ask me any questions you want, follow up, I would love to connect with all your listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And I do want to share one thought, because when you say, if it's not a part of your culture, then say it. Still say it to your team. Guess what? How about we just make it a part of the culture?
I would love for that to happen.
All cultures, because I mean, it's a matter of just making a decision, and we influence our teams first, and let's just move forward influencing one another. So, Dr.
Exactly.
Meg, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate
you. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. And if
anyone, this is my first time, so thank you for your flexibility.
You are so welcome. And if anyone wants to listen again and again and again to this recording, just know we're at Pointers for Parents podcast on IG. And of course, we'll have a testimonial next week. I'm super duper excited. And so for our listeners, if you all want to hear either more from Dr. Meg, let me know. We'll bring her back on. Or if there are any other discussion topics you all would like to hear, just let me know and we'll make sure that comes as well. And for now, again, thank you so very much. And we will see you all again next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Meg. Bye.
Pointers for Parents podcast.